Hello, 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 new world. It's me, Niiamah, and I'm coming to you today in this Outliers Edge podcast. I didn't expect to do that, and
Oh
that's
my
what
God,
we
that's so
expect here.
cool.
Yeah, right. This is it.
So
Expect
cool.
the unexpected. Today I get a chance to. Oh, let me say this. Hey, I'm Niiamah Ashong, and thank you so much for letting me be a part of your journey. Like we're here on the Outliers Edge podcast, where we really focus on helping people take the things about them that are different in the world and use it to give them an edge, to get an advantage, and to see how they've been able to incorporate that into their life, their business, and their impact to make the difference that only they can make on this planet. And I'm so thrilled to be here with Torea Rodriguez. It's an absolute pleasure to be in space with you here. We're gonna have an amazing conversation, and we'll allow things to emerge as they need to. But I just want to say, Torea, thank you so much for making the time for this year, and I'm excited to see what we get into.
I am really excited to have this conversation and thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Well, thanks for saying yes here. I want to start off with just to get to help us get to know you, and the way I like to look at this here is like tell us about you and the mission that you're on.
Oh gosh. That's a really great question. I will try and condense it. I am somebody who has had multiple career paths in various different industries. So I've switched from biochemistry to technology to aviation to functional medicine. Like I've done a lot of different things. And over that period of time, what I started to recognize is that like my key thing that I love to do is I love to mentor and teach people and guide people. So, and I also love to help people with really major transitions in their life, whether that's recovering from a chronic illness or helping them with a career objective or switching careers or helping them just find their purpose. That is what lights me up in the morning. And that is the culmination now of the work that I do. And I do that through using, and we can dive into what these terms mean later, but I use a combination of psychoneuroimmunology and quantum biology to do that work with people. And that may sound like a lot of rocket ship terms right now, but we're going to get into it and explain what that means. But that is what lights me up. And that is the kind of work that I just love to do.
So I'm here to be present and with you, and I'm like as soon as you said psychoneural, I lost the two words.
Psychoneuroimmunology. Yeah,
Yes,
it's a
I was like I got to
mouthful.
write that down, and then I was like I have to write that down. So how about this? I want to know those terms. You
Yeah.
said that we were going to go into it later, and why
Yep.
don't we do it now then? Like
Fabulous.
later now,
Now is
right?
later.
So
Okay.
now is later. Help us
Cool.
understand. Help us understand what you're talking about here. Let's pick one. Pick one
Okay.
first, and let's go. Let's deal deep on that, and then we'll get to the next one.
Fabulous. So, psychoneuroimmunology is the study of how what is going on in our mind actually has a downward cascading effect on our human physical body. So, when we have a thought and a resulting emotion, that is starting to kick off a neurotransmitter cascade, a hormonal cascade, a cytokine cascade inside the body. And so, what we can think can have a huge effect on how our mitochondria work, how our DNA expresses itself, how our cells operate, what kind of state they are operating in. And when I was working early on in my functional medicine decade, right, I was working primarily in the physical body, just looking at biochemistry and working with people doing labs, giving them supplement protocols, and really just focusing on the physical body. And while some clients got 100% better, there was a subset of clients that were getting 60, 70, 80% better, but not full return to vitality. And I got super curious, like, what's going on there? Like, what's happening? And I started to understand a little bit more around mindset and how mindset is super important to almost everything that we do. And then I discovered psychoneuroimmunology, got super excited by a very complicated sciencey word, because that's how I roll, and started to get into what is actually happening. So we know that if we are in a practice of gratitude and we feel gratitude multiple times in a day, that actually changes the level of secretory IgA, which is an antibody that the immune system will put out as kind of like first responder. And it increases the way that our immune system responds just through gratitude. And that was just like mind blowing. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. So that is psychoneuroimmunology. And those are the kinds of things that I start to work with clients. Is it's not just about the physical body. It's about the mental body and the emotional body and the spiritual body and the energetic body. Like all of those things are combined when we are looking at a whole person and their health. So that's that word.
All right, so let's take some time. Like, I'm ready trying. I'm like, you can see me. I'm like, I'm gonna say it one more time for me so I can practice it one time. Psychoneuroimmunology.
Immunology. Yep.
Yes. All right. There we go. So and the reason I say this, like, it's like I know myself. Like if I can repeat it, if I can speak to it, then I have a chance to own it. If I don't, then it's like it's gone. So can I share back what I think I heard in this here? Because I want to make sure I felt like I was really fascinated when you were talking about like the impacts that of how our thoughts can like actually impact like various things into the cells and such. I was like, so what will be like the end result of that? Like, so why does that matter? And if I'm hearing you here, like the impact is that like it allows, well actually let me just ask you the question. Like, so you said a little bit here, but like, why does all this matter? For what you're doing? Like, so if all this is changing in here, you're working with people on the physical body, like something's happening on the inside here, down on like the cellular level, you know?
Yeah.
Why is that important?
Well, I mean, a lot of us have the experience of when we feel good physically, we feel good mentally, like our outlook is also good. And when we start to pattern in things like, this is where it started to really culminate for me with chronic illness. So a lot of those clients that fell into that spot of just not quite getting to that full vitality again, oftentimes were plagued by the thought that would show up whenever they would have a symptom arise. They would think, oh, my body is still broken. And you can imagine what will happen to your body if you continually tell it that it's broken. It's not going to function in its optimal way. And so the way that we think about our physical body can have a huge impact on how those cells actually operate. And now we're starting to understand, oh, it's through the hormone messaging and the neurotransmitter messaging and the cytokine messaging. All of those chemical compounds are how the brain speaks to the cells, and that's how that gets translated. So that's why I think it's important.
It's so cool hearing you talk about this here because, like, you know, there's a part of this where I can imagine someone off the street having lunch with you and you're talking like, oh, like, you know, bring more gratitude into your life. And they're like, okay, this is woo-woo, like so on and so forth. And at the same time, you're like, no, I can throw down with like the best of them here. Like, let's talk about like the messaging that's going on through your body here. And that actually means a lot to me right now because I think about the people here that like the outliers that I serve and like the differences that we're all out there to make. And what was going on through my mind was actually like a bit of Star Trek, not in like the sense of like space stuff, but like the idea of like when art meets science, you know, where they're like, oh, I like in like when Star Trek came out, they like have like the transponders, and it's like, well, how can this like understand any language out there? Like that would be like a box you just pull out and you can talk to it and they can hear you, like, and all this, and it translates the language, and then I go and I see like Google Translate, you know, it's like
right now we have the phone. We just speak into it, have other languages. It's amazing.
And so like what's coming for me as I'm listening is like this is like the component of like, okay, on some level I may have anecdotally seen like, okay, someone like something like you saw like anecdotal evidence, like there's a difference there, right? I might have like felt that like, hey, I think this makes a difference, right? But doubted myself in terms of like, would I actually have like, is there any fidelity behind this? Like is this make any sense? Like, who's going to believe me, so on and so forth, right? And like as I'm listening to you as you're describing this, I'm just thinking about the outliers out there that like have that know that they know something is working, and they may not know why, Like, and they may not know they have to go down to the cellular level to understand that like different hormones are being released to do it, but it does have the impact there. And I'm grateful for you in this moment. I'm grateful because I'm like, one, you've already connected some dots around what people may know on like a macro level. You're like, here goes why it works on the micro level as well. One, and then two, I think that like I feel freedom with you, right? And the reason I feel freedom is I'm like, oh, you've lived many different lives, so you've seen many different things. But and when you do it, like the way you're talking, I'm like, oh, but each life that you live, like you go deep,
Yes, sir.
like you have a lot that comes along, like you have a lot of experience of life.
Yeah.
It's not the same year 10 years in a row. Like you go deep on it. And
do.
so I'm excited to just continue to be in conversation with you. These are the kinds of things that I'm seeing. I just like, I feel freedom because I'm like, oh, this is someone who has experience. And I take that over expertise any day.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that and seeing that, because that is something that I've had this ability to do all my life, is go very deep, but also have a lot of different interests. And early on, I was a little bit, I guess I'll just use the word scattered, but when anybody was trying to, the high school counselor or the college counselor was like, okay, you got to pick an interest here, or you got to pick a major. That was so hard for me to do. And I went through university and probably changed my major 4 different times. And finally, at the end, I was like, fine, biochemistry. That's what I'm going to do, because I needed to like stop changing my mind and extending how long I was going to be in school. So, but I've always had this ability to go super deep on things because I have this unsatiable curiosity. I'm just so curious about the world and how things work that I am that person tinkering and pulling things apart and putting them back together.
That's cool. As we continue here, I want to hear more about how that curiosity has been playing out for you in business and in your mission as well. There is, I'm tempted to just continue down the path right now, but maybe you can, and this might be unfair to you, but I'll ask anyway. In 30 to 60 seconds, you mentioned 2 things. You mentioned the I forgot it again. Psychoneuroimmunology, and then one other thing. So can you tell us about
the other thing? Yeah, the other thing is called quantum biology, and I can definitely summarize that in a little bit.
Now quantum biology is so cool. I don't want you to summarize. Just hit us with it. It's just too cool. Tell us more about it.
So for a long time, we've known these biological phenomena that occur, but applying the laws of chemistry or the laws of biochemistry or the laws of Newtonian physics is still not quite explaining what we're observing. And so in recent years, very recent years, we've started to intermingle or intersect the areas of quantum physics with biology. And now we're starting to understand how we can do electron transfer at these large distances called quantum tunneling, that is actually happening within each of our cells at the mitochondrial level. It's also happening across the cell membrane. And so we are now learning something we've always known. I think a lot of us have always known this, how intrinsically connected we are to our natural world. We're now understanding why, because we are reliant on the photons that come from the sun. We're reliant on the negative ions that come from water that's being turbulent, for example, waterfalls, waves crashing. We're reliant on the VOCs, or the phytoncides is what they're called, that come out of the plants when we're walking through a forest. This is why people call it forest bathing, because they're actually getting this enhancement of our own natural function and our well-being from the world around us. And the reason why it's happening is this quantum biology piece. So that is another area that I spend my nights in PubMed scientific articles reading and just totally geeking out on.
There's something here that's like, I just want to keep calling it. Like, I very much appreciate you, right? Because part of the reason that we even like came into each other's world is because I came across the widely optimized wellness podcast that you and your co-host lead, right?
Yep.
And it's so fun for me because like I'm recognizing this conversation, like what a gift you've been, where it's like, okay, I would have imagined one thing in our conversation. I'm like, cool, I'm so down for this conversation. And this would like see how like the actual bridge that you bring in, I think like really how do I say it? I'm glad that you have continued to build upon all of your experiences in ways to offer it to the world that we may not expect, and we may not actually see, but we don't may not actually see on the level that it's actually occurring, but like you said, like, but we know it's taking place. And
Yeah.
that speaks to me. It speaks to me because I hang out with outliers who've had wildly, like, they have very unconventional paths, you know. So
Yeah.
when you're like, I did this, that, and the other, I'm like, sign me up, I get it, you know. But what I also feel for you is that like, because you've taken things on a level of depth, because you've gone broad and deep with it, you are finding connections amongst these things that other people might not actually recognize actually are connected, and you're bringing them together with just a high degree of fidelity, you know. And it's reminded me, and outliers, I'm going to pass this one on to you, like, take some time across the things that you've done, and what is one part of your experience, that past life that you had lived, what's one part that you kind of put over and tucked over into the corner that really you should shine a light on and might actually be able to be reincorporated into your life to find new solutions and new connections there. And Torea, I see you thinking about that, so I'd be curious if anything comes to mind for you in that, as I ask that
Yeah,
question.
let me mull on that as we have that conversation,
Yeah,
and see
yeah.
if I can't pull forward what that might be. My most immediate response is, and it may just have to do with the conversation that I had with a client yesterday around risk assessment and being able to uh, look at risk and physical personal safety in a methodical way. And it's something that you're trained to do as a pilot. So that's from a past career, right? Being trained to look at all of the risk that is being taken on by performing a flight operation. And, how can we apply that to our own health or health decisions? And maybe that is something that comes forward. I don't know.
I like to play this game here. For me, like you talk about risk, I was an actuarial candidate for a number of years. Did a lot of like computations on risk, and that typically you see them in like insurance. And I was particularly doing retirement, and then I went into coaching. And for like 6 years, I was like, actually before I went into coaching, I moved into learning development. And so I guess about 8 years, I was like, don't even mention Excel around me. Right. And
No
it's like,
worries.
yeah. And I was amazing at it, but I didn't want to be put in a box. And it wasn't until quite recently, in like the last year, where I realized, I'm like, oh wait, this is yet another thing that helps differentiate me. And when we're talking business here, like, business is economics. I have an economics degree. I'm like, it's like, do you understand the mathematical realities of the goals that
Right.
you're setting,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. And I realized, like, oh, all these components all add up. You can have it's the mindset plus the this plus the that plus the this, like, to create a comprehensive system that understands like what's actually taking place. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that we didn't just like cut off the quantum biology. I had no clue that like we could look at it at that on that level.
Yeah.
It's just making me think about like how many other things I want to like learn about in the world right now. So I'm really grateful for you on that.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, to put that one home in terms of how can we experience quantum biology and really understand it? I mean, you tell me, you've been to the ocean. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And how do you feel after you've spent some time next to the waves that are crashing around you?
So for me, there's a sense of calm. There's a sense of like, it's like I I don't call it groundedness, but I feel centeredness all throughout it. And it's just like I just feel it's the right kind of energy for me. I don't know how to say what the energy is, but I'm energized, and it's different than
Yeah.
when I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of that kind of interaction with our natural world on this planet. in that we are getting not only a mental wellness boost, but also a physical wellness boost from it. So that's just taking that idea home of like, I don't know what it is, but every time I'm at the ocean, I feel better.
Yeah.
That's what you're experiencing. And we're just now getting to the point in science where we're starting to be able to describe and understand it by applying the quantum physics models, which is super exciting.
It's exciting. Like this is cool stuff. So like now I'm curious. I'm like, so how are you bringing all this into your business? I can imagine. Yeah, actually, I'd be really curious. Like how do you play with this? How do you interact with this inside of your business here? Can you give us a bit of a picture of that?
Yeah, so I've kind of moved away from doing functional labs and supplements as kind of like a core offering, because I know that that's part of, but not the primary way to work with clients to help them improve their health. And I also have an interest in, what if it's not a health problem that they're dealing with? What if it's a career issue or they want to switch industries, whatever? I've got that experience to help them. And the way that I'm incorporating all these things is I have a core program. Right now it's called Transformation Academy. Next year it's going to be relaunched with a new name, but it's going to be enhanced with some of these concepts, which is how can we improve our physical body performance by interacting with nature on a regular basis, by using those elements of quantum biology to balance our nervous system so that we can be present enough and have enough energy to be able to take on this next change that somebody might be ambitiously taking on. And so I will teach these different concepts of quantum biology and how we can apply them, and the concepts of psychoneuroimmunology and how we can apply them as we're starting to look at what are the different steps to make a change like this. And, part of it is becoming aware of our thought patterns and our beliefs and things that aren't serving us anymore, and systematically breaking those down, simultaneously creating new ones and systematically building them up. And in that process is what we are doing in the nervous system. We're rewiring our neurology in the brain. And that is how we make these kinds of transformations.
So like, this sounds awesome. Congratulations on all this here. I'm just going to follow my curiosity in this conversation. If you have anything that you're curious about, let me know.
Please.
So what would you consider to be like, you have a really good positive energy. Like, I feel like there's an upbeatness to you, right? One of my questions that comes to mind is like, what would you say has been like the hardest part of creating what you're creating right now for you?
I think the hardest part is not having a roadmap, not having a model. I think one of the things as a business owner, I know we're also talking about the ins and outs of businesses and things like that. When I decided that I wanted to be an entrepreneur and go to work for myself, terrified, number one, like, how does that even work? So that took a little bit of a leap of faith. But number two, I think for the longest time, I was in that learning mode, and we always are when we start something new. So I knew enough to have that grace of like, look, you're taking the training wheels off here. You might crash a couple times. It's okay. We're just going to get back on the bike and keep going. And as I was doing that, I would take a business course, take a marketing course, learn these skills that I knew I needed to learn. But what ended up happening is I started to model what other people were doing. And I started to recognize that I can be easily influenced by what other people are doing and it not being authentically what I need to be doing. And then I waste a shit ton of time and money trying to model somebody else's thing. So I think the hardest thing has been leaning into that trust of like, it's okay. You don't have to have a roadmap. Just do what lights you up. And that is really coming into culmination in the last couple of years for me. I wanted to do a journal. So I made a journal, right? Nobody else had done a journal like this. And it was a year-long project, and it took a long time, and it took a bit of investment. And I'm so grateful that I did it because I'm so proud of that thing. So it's like I'm starting to learn how to trust myself of I don't necessarily need a roadmap. I just need to create what I really like, and then start to learn. And then it's about the feedback and make an adjustment, feedback and adjustment. That's why I'm going to rebrand the Transformation Academy and make it even better, because I've gotten some really great feedback from the participants that have been through, and I need to put that into the new one. So just feedback, adjust.
I really appreciate you being like, you bring this in here, where because walking the path without the roadmap, like that, this is why I build what I build with Outliers Edge, and why we talked earlier about like, oh, what happens with like the editing of the podcast. I'm like, we let it go, because like for those of us out there that are like building the plane as we're flying it, who are going down the path but don't have a roadmap, so on and so forth, like who are constantly going into uncharted waters, like things don't always work out,
Nope, they don't. And that's okay.
That's all right.
Totally fine.
That's it. And it's part of the reason why like I allow the expression to come out in these conversations. Like you'll see me reflect back, because I'm like, we don't have the benefit of the path being completely illuminated by someone else already, right? Mm-hmm. We're fortunate in many different ways that we have each other, we have connectivity, there's so many things that are happening that are working in our favor. And for those of us that have said, hey, we have about like 12 different experiences in our past, and we found the through line of it, like people didn't have that opportunity to do that back in the day, and then to be able to get that out into the world, and to be able to be financially viable from it, and so on and so forth. So I'm grateful that you brought in, like, navigated the roadmapless path,
Yeah.
It's funny, I'm thinking right now about like how like I can sit in my car and I'm like, I don't need to know where, I just need to know where I'm going. I could put it in my Google, and then like we'll go on and the maps will tell me how to get there. I'm like, how fortunate are we that like we can keep expanding and exploring, because like there is, everywhere we go, there is a directions that to follow in that. And I think about that when it comes to business. I'm like, oh, we have some, but like when we're really choosing to do our own thing, like it's quite the adventure.
I think it's one of those things that, it's great that we have a lot of roadmaps. I don't regret taking any of those trainings, learning how to do like a webinar funnel. Don't regret doing that at all. Was it the right way for me to attract business for a period of time? Yeah, absolutely it was. And then there became a time where, you know what, this path isn't working for me anymore. I'm evolving. And I think as an entrepreneur, we don't often give ourselves that space to evolve and shift, because we as humans love to like box people in to what we think they should be doing. Well, a functional medicine practitioner needs to be offering labs and supplements to people. And while that's true, it doesn't necessarily mean that that is the only thing that I'm going to be able to do and help my clients with. So I had to really let go of that idea of, what I need to be doing a gut health program with a gut lab. I don't need to be doing that. I can help people with gut health in a lot of different ways. And so I think giving ourselves that grace to explore a little bit, maybe not put your destination into Google, so that you can take a couple different routes and discover the coastline, or discover something else. Like you might find a new neighborhood that you didn't even know was nearby your neighborhood. And you're like, whoa, this is a cool place to hang out. Like, why have I never been here? So giving ourselves that grace to do that, I think, is super important.
Yeah, as you say that, it makes me think about, I'm literally just thinking about the times that I've allowed myself to get lost and like new things come out. And it connects me actually to that feeling of gratitude, right?
Yeah.
Because I have found that as I try to come out and be like, this is where we're headed, that the periods of time in where my gratitude practice seems to dip the most is when I'm in that stage of like, are we at the destination yet? Compared to, wow, this like, look where we are now, and let's appreciate where we are right now. And we are going to get to we're going to get to the destination, but the journey was the reason. The journey was the reason. And so like, I'm even looking back at your journal right now, and I'm seeing what looks like something that like a winding, something that looks like a wind back there. And it's coming to me here. Tell us a little bit about the journal here, just so we get a sense of that.
Sure. So it's called the Wellness Optimization Journal. It's specifically not called the Health Optimization Journal. It's wellness, right? It's looking at all areas of wellness. And the way that I designed it is that it's an experience. It's a companion to have an experience. You'll do an assessment of what areas of your life might need some more attention. It helps you identify how to craft goals around those areas. And then each week, there is a mindset component. There's a physical component of getting yourself into action on those things so that you can do that improvement. And then there's a section that I call the extra boost section, right? And that gives people a little bit deeper exercises to work on. That might be coming up with a new belief, or it might be actually recognizing how awesome they actually are. So many of us just don't even accept compliments or recognition. It's kind of like I used to be an achievement junkie. So I would like complete something and people are like, congratulations. I'm like, thanks, I'm on to the next thing, like immediately. And so giving ourselves a way to practice that is also built into the journal. And then at the end, there's a reassessment so that you can actually see your progress. And do you have to use it every single day? No, you use it as you're called to use it. So while it's designed for a quarter, you could probably use that over the course of an entire year and see some massive transformation. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I really appreciate you, Torea. Like there's a couple of different things that are taking place. One, if someone wants to get their hands on the journal, how do they go about doing it?
They just go to my website and then they click on the journal and they can order it from there.
Awesome. And this since we're audio people, what's your website?
Oh, thank you. My website is torearodriguez.com, which is spelled ToreaRodriguez.com.
Awesome. So yeah, outliers, get your hands on this here. And part of this here, like there's two things. One, I want you to have the actual transformation that this book clearly leads you through. And the other thing for me is like even as you're describing it, like I said, I appreciate you because the things that are coming for me is, one, you have a very grounded way of describing what happens in the workbook. Right. I got to talk to a lot of people who are here to uplift the world. And not everyone is able to articulate like what they offer to the world in a way that like we can continue to see the practicalities of it in our own real life, you know?
Yeah.
And there's thing about you in aviation. It's like you can be up in the clouds, you know, but then you could also be down to like inside to like the smallest quantum level and like and beyond. And at the same time, still meet us in like the very practical, real like macro world that out here, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a real gift that you have. I really do want to just like, I want to call that out. And I'm drawing attention to this here because I think that there are, for me, it's an experience of what happens as people continue to like develop the various skill sets that can accompany what you're doing. Like I get this sense, Torea, that like you can go do anything in the world. Like you can come out and be like, oh yeah, and now I'm doing this, right? But because you have the skill set, you're able to tell the stories, help us feel like help make it practical and applicable for us, and just allow it to be the amazing, unique creation that you wanted it to be, and at the same time have that actually feel really practical and grounded. So I want to put this into space here because we're all off doing stuff. We don't have roadmaps, you know,
Right.
but there's something in the way that you choose, that you have the skill set in which you use, or just the way you talk about these things. It's like, I feel like a belief, like both knowledge and a deep belief in like, this is good. Why is it good? Because it made it what I wanted to be. And what did I want it to be? An experience. And so on and so forth. Like I have to call that into this room.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because one of my, it took me a while to figure out that this is, I have a couple of superpowers. One of them is being able to make these connections and translate complex information into easy to understand but actionable pieces. So a lot of times when we start looking at concepts that we don't quite understand, in order for us to really understand it, we kind of have to put it into action. But if we can't actually see the action, it's like not as easy as, well, just go to the gym. It may not be that easy when we're trying to shift a mindset or a belief, for example? Or how do we access a different mood? That can be a complete different process. So I like being able to do that and translate that for people. One of my other superpowers is I don't get brain freeze. I have tried a gazillion times and I don't. But creating those experiences for people, that is key in almost everything that I do. So the journal is an experience for somebody. It's not just a to-do list and it's not a planner. My retreats are an experience for people. My programs are an experience for them to go through. Because in my life, how I've learned is by getting the experience, by going out into the real world and trying things, falling on my bike countless times to figure out that, oh, eventually I can hop that curb. But the first couple times I went up against that curb, there was not a lot of hopping and more falling happening. And that is how we learn best, in my opinion, is through experience.
I'm grateful for the experience that you've given me of you. Right? It's been very enjoyable having this conversation because I do believe that you are someone who's exemplified and living out in the world. You're modeling what it's like to create something, create a life for yourself and create a business for yourself and create impact in the world that's in alignment with you without necessarily knowing how it should be done or how it could be done, but like continuing to show up each and every day and doing it in a way that like it just feels wildly you. You know, I think I get the thing that wildly came in from you even, you know, but it just feels like I'm like, I get it. And then there's a deep like sense of assuredness where I'm like, oh yeah, anything she touches is going to be great. The time frame, the time frame might not work out, but might work out whenever the time frame works out. But like you really do have it there, and I want to call this in because I'm great. I'm thank you for letting me like speak to some of these things, because I know that there are people who listen or watch and they're not necessarily sure like what has happened. Why do I feel that like this person's confident, you know? And they're like, but I'm not confident. And they're seeing like what's coming out on the outside, and they're not really getting the chance to like know like what it feels like what you feel like on the inside, you know? And so I appreciate you allowing me to share some of what I'm feeling on the inside, to express what I believe I'm experiencing on like through the external part that everyone is seeing us have. Like there's a lot that's happening inside of here, but there's even more, and this I think you would appreciate this, even more happening here all throughout my body. I'm like, oh, what, like why am I tingling, so on and so forth. Like we should have some additional conversations. You probably have some answers to some of these questions.
Welcome to the emotional and energetic body, my friend.
Okay.
Yep.
Admit taking a one right now. There's thank you for allowing. I almost feel like an artist and like allowing us to like use the canvas of this conversation to paint something that both like showcases you and also gives us a chance to be able to see like the components of how you have taken your life, your experiences, your strengths, the things that light you up in the world, the things that don't work for you, so on and so forth, and have brought them into a very unique package that you can look at with pride and say, I'm proud of this, you know? I and to continue to use that to build each step of what you do next. To me, that's a world of difference in action. Like you are a living model of what a world of difference looks like. And I'm just so grateful to be in presence and in connection and conversation with you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I mean, that really touches my heart. And I mean, for anybody who's listening to this conversation and looking in thinking, oh my God, I don't have that. The truth of the matter is that you do, you just haven't seen it yet. And if you start looking for it and start looking for the little clues, you're going to put them together. And I didn't wake up, 4 years old being like, okay, cool. So I'm going to be a pilot and I'm going to turn out to be a coach and transformation and functional medicine and psychoneuroimmunology. Like, no way, right? It took time for me to put those clues together. And I hope that any take-home message that the listeners get is we all have this within us. And it's just a matter of discovery and being curious and applying that curiosity, because here's the best thing about curiosity, and I say this all the time. Curiosity, when we are in that state, it is simultaneously impossible to be in a state of judgment. And most of the time, we're in a state of self-judgment. So if we can apply curiosity, that will give you the space to be able to discover this stuff. So go get a curiosity hat.
Fantastic. So let's do this here. Grab that curiosity hat. Let's make it happen, outliers. Like, Torea, like, it's come to the end of our conversation, our time together here. But I do want to have people be able to continue the conversation with you if they would like to. What's the best way that they can do that?
Fabulous. So 2 places that I hang out is you can reach me on my website, torearodriguez.com. I'm sure you'll put the spelling in the show notes. And I'm also on Instagram at Torea Rodriguez. And so that is where I hang out. Feel free to DM me. I'm open to conversation, and yeah, I can't wait to meet some of you. That'll be amazing.
I'm excited for that too. I'm excited when that happens. Let me know.
Okay.
That's gonna be so great. The last question I'm gonna ask you is what I call the time capsule question. And what I know here is that you have lived your life up until this point with all the lessons that you've had, and it's gotten you to this wonderful position in life, right? You're going to keep doing things, and the road is still going to be like unclear, right? And there may be a time where you have to remind yourself of something that you know right now. What's the message that you would love to leave for your future self that, like, just remind yourself when you might be having to navigate something that you were unexpectedly doing?
Yeah. I mean, it may sound cliche because a lot of people use this one, but failure is only feedback, right? It's like, if we can keep that mindset of we get the feedback, we make an adjustment. We get the feedback, we make an adjustment. It's how everything works. So I'm going to pull in some aviation to kind of explain this and drive this home. But when we program that GPS and that aircraft is flying along using autopilot and GPS, the way that the GPS is working literally is it's letting the airplane drift off course and then get back on course, drift off course and get back on course. And it's all a matter of tiny course corrections. And so when I have a tough time and I'm thinking, oh my God, that totally did not go how I planned, it's a total failure, la, 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 I always remember it's like, oh, it's just a bit of feedback. Okay, so what do I need to do to adjust and just get myself back on course? And that's what I would leave it with.
Well, I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for our conversation here. Outliers just go out and adjust and keep staying on course and moving from there and drifting off to wherever comes up from there. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody.